The first time I met my mother-in-law, she looked at my shoes. Not my face, not my eyes. My shoes. Payless, she said like she was identifying a disease. My name is Solstice, and I should have run right then. But love makes you stupid, and I was drowning in it. Mom, please. Vance squeezed my hand. Soul's amazing. You'll see. Sylvia Horton adjusted her pearls and smiled the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes. Of course, darling. Welcome to the family. That was 10 years ago. Today, I buried my husband. The funeral was everything Vance would have hated. Stuffy, pretentious, full of people who barely knew him, but loved being seen. I sat in the front row of the cathedral, wearing the black dress Sylvia had suggested I purchase from Bergdorf's. Even in grief, appearances mattered to the Hortons. Beautiful service, someone whispered behind me. Such a tragedy. So young. At least Sylvia still has the girls. The girls, Oakley and Paige. Not me. Never me. I watched Sylvia accept condolences like a queen holding court. Designer tissues dabbed at perfectly applied makeup. Oakley stood beside her, scanning the crowd with calculating eyes, probably mentally cataloging who showed up and who didn't. You holding up okay? Paige touched my shoulder. Of the 3 Horton women, she was the only one who'd ever shown me basic human decency. I'm fine, I lied. The reception was at the estate, Vance's childhood home that never felt like mine, despite a decade of trying. Crystal chandeliers cast shadows over marble floors, while caterers served food I couldn't pronounce to people who'd never worked a day in their lives. I found myself cornered by the fireplace, accepting hollow condolences from Vance's golf buddies and country club friends. Everyone kept saying how sudden it was, how unexpected. Like cancer gave a damn about expectations. Such a shame about the prenup situation, I heard someone whisper. My blood turned to ice. Well, what did she expect, marrying into money like that? Sylvia's no fool, protected the family assets. I excused myself and locked myself in the powder room, gripping the marble countertop until my knuckles went white. The prenup. Of course they were talking about the prenup. I could still see Sylvia's face from the week before our wedding, sitting across from me in her lawyer's office like a judge pronouncing sentence. It's just a formality, dear, she'd said, sliding the papers across the mahogany table. Surely you understand our position. 27 pages of legal language that basically said I'd get nothing if the marriage ended. Nothing if Vance died. Nothing. Period. This is insane, I'd told Vance that night. Your mother wants me to sign away any claim to our life together. It's just paper, Soul. It doesn't mean anything. His voice was pleading, desperate. I love you. That's what matters. Then why does she need me to sign it? Because she's scared. She's lost so much already. Dad, the business struggles. She's just protecting what's left. What about protecting me? I'll protect you. Always. I promise. I signed it. God help me, I signed it because I loved him and couldn't imagine a world where we weren't together. Now here I was, in that world. The reception finally ended around 9. Guests filtered out with their empty platitudes and full bellies, leaving me alone with the Horton women in the echoing silence of the estate. We need to talk, Sylvia said, her voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. Oakley smirked from her perch on the antique sofa. This should be interesting. About what? I asked, though I already knew. Sylvia's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and predatory underneath. About your future, dear. Or rather, your lack of one here. She pulled an envelope from her purse and set it on the coffee table between us. What's that? Your notice. 30 days to vacate the premises. The room spun. This is my home. No, Oakley said, examining her manicured nails. This is our family home. You were just visiting. Vance left me. Nothing. Sylvia's voice was final. The prenup is very clear. You have no claim to this house, the accounts, or any Horton assets. I'm being generous, giving you 30 days. I stared at the envelope like it might burst into flames. I need to call my lawyer. Good luck with that, Oakley laughed. Trent's been our family attorney for 20 years. Guess whose calls he'll be taking? They left me sitting there in the dark, surrounded by the ghosts of a life that was never really mine. But as I climbed the stairs to what used to be our bedroom, I remembered something. Vance's last lucid day, 3 weeks ago. The way he'd gripped my hand and whispered, "Check the music box, Saul. Everything you need is in the music box." I'd thought it was the morphine talking. Maybe it wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to silence. Not the peaceful kind, the deliberate kind. The kind that screams louder than any argument. I padded downstairs in my robe, expecting to find Maria in the kitchen making her usual spread of fresh fruit and coffee. Instead, I found empty counters and a note propped against the coffee maker. "Mrs. Horton has given us new instructions. We are no longer to provide services to the guest wing. Household staff." Guest wing, that's what they were calling our bedroom now. I made my own coffee with shaking hands and sat at the kitchen island where Vance and I used to share breakfast every morning. The silence pressed against my eardrums like water. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your car will be towed if not moved from the main driveway by noon. Park in the service area behind the garage." I laughed, actually laughed, because the alternative was screaming. By 10 a.m., I was dressed and trying to call our family lawyer. Trent's secretary put me on hold 3 times before finally coming back with, "Mr. Trent is unavailable for the foreseeable future. This is about my husband's estate, Vance Horton. I understand, Mrs. Ford, but Mr. Trent exclusively represents the Horton family interests now." Ford. She'd called me Ford, like I'd never been married at all. I was still staring at my phone when the front door slammed open. "There you are." Oakley's voice echoed through the foyer. "We need to discuss the jewelry situation." She swept into the living room like she owned it, which, apparently, she did. Behind her trailed 2 men in suits carrying leather portfolios. "What jewelry situation?" I asked. "The family pieces you've been wearing. They need to come back to the family." She gestured to the men. "These gentlemen are here to catalog everything. Those were gifts from Vance. Gifts from the family collection. There's a difference." Oakley's smile was razor-sharp. "The Cartier watch, the diamond tennis bracelet, the pearl set from Grandmother Horton, all family heirlooms that were loaned for special occasions." "Loaned?" My voice cracked. "I wore them to our anniversary dinner last month. Vance said a lot of things, but the insurance documentation shows these pieces never left family ownership." She snapped her fingers at one of the men. "The bedroom, please. 3rd door on the right." I watched them march upstairs to rifle through my jewelry box like I was already dead. "You can't do this." "Actually, I can. Estate law is very clear about family heirlooms versus marital property." Oakley examined her reflection in the hallway mirror. "Don't worry. You can keep your wedding ring. Though I doubt it's worth much. Vance always was sentimental about budget." The casual cruelty of it hit me like a slap. He loved me. I'm sure he did. In his way. She turned to face me fully. "But love doesn't change legal documents, sweetie. And it certainly doesn't change the fact that you never belonged here. I lived here for 10 years. You existed here. There's a difference." One of the men came downstairs carrying my jewelry box. Everything Vance had ever given me, every anniversary and birthday gift, reduced to evidence in their inventory. "The watch isn't here," he told Oakley. "I'm wearing it," I said quietly. "Well?" Oakley held out her hand. I looked down at the Cartier on my wrist. Vance had fastened it there on our 5th anniversary, kissing my pulse point and whispering that time meant nothing when you were with the right person. I unclasped it and dropped it into her palm. "Excellent. We'll be back tomorrow for the artwork assessment." Oakley headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Sol? The locks are being changed this weekend. Make sure you're here when the locksmith comes so you can get your new key. Wouldn't want you locked out of your temporary accommodations." After they left, I sat on the couch where Vance used to read the Sunday paper, surrounded by the ghosts of a life being systematically erased. My phone rang. Unknown number again. "Hello? Mrs. Horton, this is First National Bank. We're calling about your joint checking account." "What about it?" "It's been frozen pending estate resolution. Your debit card has been deactivated." "That's impossible. It's a joint account." "Yes, ma'am, but the primary account holder has passed, and the estate executor has requested a freeze until probate is complete." I hung up and immediately tried to log into our online banking. Access denied. The credit cards were next. Then the gas card. One by one, every financial lifeline was cut. By evening, I was sitting in the dark because I couldn't figure out how to pay the electric bill, holding my phone and staring at my father's number. Luis would help if I asked, but calling him meant admitting I'd been right all those years ago when he'd warned me about marrying into money I hadn't earned. Instead, I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, my bedroom, and sat on the edge of the bed where Vance had spent his final weeks. "Check the music box," I whispered to the empty room. The antique music box sat on my dresser, a wedding gift from Vance's grandmother. I'd never paid much attention to it beyond winding it occasionally to hear the tiny ballerina dance to Für Elise. I lifted the lid and watched the ballerina spin. The melody tinkled through the silence, delicate and haunting. Then I noticed something I'd never seen before, a tiny catch hidden beneath the velvet lining. My hands trembled as I pressed it. The bottom of the music box clicked open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a folded document and a business card. The document was thick legal paper, covered in Vance's handwriting. At the top, in his careful script, "Partnership Debt Agreement, V. Horton and S. Horton." The business card read, "Miles Mack, attorney at law," with a phone number written in Vance's hand underneath. I unfolded the document and began to read. By the third paragraph, I was crying. By the fifth, I was laughing. By the end, I understood exactly what my husband had done. I read the document 3 times before the words stopped swimming on the page. Partnership debt agreement. Vance owed me money. A lot of money. For consulting services, emotional labor, household management, and personal care assistance provided over the duration of our marriage. The amount made my hands shake. $2.3 million plus interest, compounded annually. Every year I'd organized his mother's birthday parties. Every business dinner I'd hosted. Every time I'd smiled through Oakley's insults or held Vance's hand through his panic attacks about disappointing his family. Every sleepless night I'd spent caring for him during his illness. All of it itemized, valued, and legally documented. The signature was definitely his. I'd seen it on enough anniversary cards to know. Witnessed by someone named Quinn Norris and dated just 3 weeks ago. Quinn, his hospice nurse. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number on the business card. It went straight to voicemail. "This is Miles Mack. Leave a message and I'll get back to you within 24 hours. This is Solstice Horton. I found your card in my husband's things. We need to talk. It's urgent." I hung up and stared at the document again. If this was real, if this was legally binding, then Sylvia couldn't touch me. The prenup meant nothing if Vance owed me money as a creditor, but I needed to be sure. I needed help. An hour later, I was sitting in my dad's kitchen, watching him read the document with his reading glasses perched on his nose. Luis had been a mechanic for 40 years before retiring, but he'd always been sharp about contracts and fine print. "Well?" I asked. He set the papers down and looked at me over his glasses. "This is either the smartest thing your husband ever did, or you're about to get your hopes crushed real hard." "What do you mean?" "I mean, this looks legitimate as hell, but I'm not a lawyer. You need professional advice." He folded his hands. "Question is, why didn't Vance tell you about this before he died?" "I don't know. Maybe he was protecting me somehow." "From what?" I thought about Sylvia's face when she'd handed me the eviction notice, the cold satisfaction in Oakley's voice. From them finding out, maybe. If they knew he'd done this, they'd have found a way to stop it. Dad nodded slowly. Smart boy. Waited until it was too late for them to interfere. My phone buzzed. Text message from Paige. Can we talk? Not at the house. Meet me at Riverside Cafe in an hour? I showed Dad the message. Go, he said. But be careful. Even the nice ones in that family might not be on your side when money's involved. Riverside Cafe was nearly empty at 3 in the afternoon. Paige was already there, hunched over a coffee cup like she was trying to disappear into it. Thanks for coming, she said when I sat down. What's this about? She glanced around nervously. I wanted to apologize for yesterday, for the jewelry thing, for all of it. You didn't take my jewelry. No, but I didn't stop it either. She wrapped her hands around her mug. I never stop it. I just stand there and watch while Mom and Oakley tear people apart. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired of being a coward. She looked up at me, and I saw something I'd never seen in a Horton's eyes before. Genuine shame. And because I think you should know what they're planning next. My stomach dropped. What? Mom's been talking to some private investigator. She wants to dig up dirt on you, find some way to prove you were, I don't know, manipulating Vance or something. She's convinced you're hiding assets. I don't have any assets. They made sure of that. I know, but she's desperate. The estate is worth less than everyone thinks, and there are debts nobody talks about. If you had any legal claim to anything, it would bankrupt them. Paige nodded. Mom would rather destroy you than admit she's been living beyond her means for years. I thought about the document hidden in my purse. Paige, if I asked you something, would you tell me the truth? I think so. Do you know a nurse named Quinn? Quinn Norris? Her face went pale. Where did you hear that name? She was Vance's hospice nurse. I need to find her. Soul, you need to be very careful about Quinn. Why? Paige looked around the cafe again, then leaned closer. Because Mom fired her, 2 weeks before Vance died. Said she was getting too involved in family business. What kind of family business? I don't know exactly, but I heard Mom on the phone with Trent, screaming about some document Quinn had witnessed. Something about Vance signing papers without the family lawyer present. My heart started racing. Do you know where Quinn is now? She's working at Mercy General. But Saul, if Mom finds out you're looking for her, she won't find out from me. Will she find out from you? Paige stared into her coffee for a long moment. No, she won't. I stood to leave, then turned back. Why are you helping me? Because Vance loved you. Really loved you. And I watched my family spend 10 years trying to kill that love. Her voice cracked. Maybe it's time someone in this family did the right thing. That evening, I sat in my car outside Mercy General, watching nurses come and go through the staff entrance. I'd called ahead and learned Quinn worked the night shift in palliative care. At 7:15, I saw her, a petite woman with kind eyes and tired shoulders, carrying a thermos and a worn leather bag. Quinn, I called out. She turned, and her face went through a series of expressions: recognition, surprise, and something that looked like fear. Mrs. Horton, I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you. I was wondering if we could talk. About what? I pulled the document from my purse. About this. Quinn's eyes widened. Oh no. You witnessed this, didn't you? She looked around the parking lot nervously. I can't. Mrs. Horton, I could lose my license. For what? For witnessing a legal document? For getting involved in family business. Your mother-in-law made it very clear that if I ever spoke about what happened that day. What did happen that day? Quinn closed her eyes. Your husband was dying and he was terrified. Not of death, of leaving you defenseless. So he wrote this? He dictated it. I wrote it down word for word. Then he signed it, and I witnessed it along with Dr. Martinez from oncology. She opened her eyes. He made me promise to never tell anyone unless you found it yourself. Is it legal? As far as I know. But Mrs. Horton, your family is going to fight this with everything they have. They're not my family, I said quietly. Quinn studied my face. No, I guess they're not. She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. This is Dr. Martinez's contact information. You'll need him to verify the witnessing if this goes to court. Thank you. Mrs. Horton, your husband spent his last weeks worrying about you. He said you were stronger than anyone gave you credit for, including yourself. She smiled sadly. I hope he was right. As I drove home, Miles Mack finally called me back. Mrs. Horton, I got your message. We need to meet, tomorrow morning 9 a.m., and bring the document. Is it real? Oh, it's real. The question is whether you're ready for what comes next. What comes next? War. Miles Mack's office was nothing like Trent's mahogany palace. Small, cluttered, with mismatched furniture and coffee-stained legal briefs scattered across every surface. But his handshake was firm, and his eyes were sharp. You look like hell, he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. Thanks. Really what I needed to hear today. I'm not here to blow sunshine up your ass, Mrs. Horton. I'm here to tell you the truth. He sat down and pulled on reading glasses. Show me the document. I handed over the partnership agreement. He read it slowly, occasionally making notes on a yellow pad. Well? I asked after what felt like an hour. It's bulletproof. Vance knew exactly what he was doing. Miles set the papers down. This isn't just a debt agreement. It's a masterpiece of legal maneuvering. What does that mean? It means your prenup is worthless. Creditors get paid before heirs inherit anything. And according to this document, you're not just a creditor, you're the primary creditor. My hands started shaking. How much are we talking about? With interest compounded over 10 years, close to $3 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. $3 million? Your husband documented every service you provided, every social function you organized, every family crisis you managed. He assigned fair market value to all of it. Miles flipped through the pages. Personal assistance services, event planning, elder care coordination, emotional support counseling. It's all here. But how do we prove I actually did all that? We don't have to. The agreement states that services were rendered over the course of your marriage. The burden of proof is on them to show you didn't do these things. He smiled grimly. Good luck proving a negative. So what happens now? Now we serve notice to the estate executor, that would be Sylvia, that you're filing a creditor's claim. She has 30 days to pay or dispute it. And if she disputes it, then we go to court. But here's the beautiful part. Until this debt is resolved, the estate can't distribute any assets to the heirs. No inheritance, no trust fund payments, nothing. I stared at him. You're saying I can freeze their entire inheritance? I'm saying you already have. The moment Vance signed this document, he put a lien on everything the family owns. Jesus. There's more. Vance was smart about the timing. He signed this 3 weeks before he died, which means it predates any deathbed coercion claims. And he had it witnessed by 2 medical professionals who can testify he was mentally competent. Quinn and Dr. Martinez. Exactly. Your mother-in-law can scream fraud all she wants, but she'll never make it stick. I felt dizzy. Miles, I need you to understand something. I didn't know about this. I had no idea Vance had done this. I know. That's what makes it so perfect. He leaned back in his chair. If you'd known, you might have acted differently, might have seemed calculating. But you've spent the last week letting them walk all over you, which proves you had no knowledge of your actual legal position. They took my jewelry, my bank accounts, they're evicting me, all of which we can use as evidence of their bad faith. They knew about the prenup, but they also knew about this debt agreement. Sylvia's been trying to push you out before you discovered it. Wait, Sylvia knew? She had to. Vance's medical records show he requested his personal attorney, me, 3 weeks before he died. I guarantee she was monitoring his communications. Miles pulled out a thick folder. Which brings us to the interesting part. There's more? Your friend Chaz called me this morning, said you might need character witnesses. I haven't talked to Chaz since the funeral. Well, he's been talking to other people. Turns out the Horton family has been very chatty about their plans for you. Chaz has been collecting quite a bit of information. He opened the folder and spread out several photographs and documents. What is this? Evidence. Chaz has been documenting every social event you've organized for the family over the past 5 years. Guest lists, invoices, thank you notes, all with your signature as the organizer. Miles pointed to a photo of me at some charity gala. This one event alone would cost $50,000 to hire a professional planner. Chaz did this? Chaz and about 6 other people who've watched the Hortons treat you like garbage for a decade. Turns out you have more friends than you realized. I stared at the evidence of my own life laid out like a legal brief. Every smile, every handshake, every gracious conversation with people who looked down on me. All of it documented and valued. There's something else, Miles said quietly. Chaz mentioned that Oakley has been bragging about how they're going to contest the will. What will? Vance left everything to his mother. Exactly. Which means they're planning to claim he wasn't mentally competent when he made his final decisions, including this debt agreement. Can they do that? They can try, but it's a double-edged sword. If they claim he wasn't competent to sign a debt agreement, they're also claiming he wasn't competent to leave everything to Sylvia. Miles grinned. Which would invalidate the will and trigger intestate succession laws. Meaning you'd inherit everything as his surviving spouse. The room went silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. Miles, what are the chances they'll just pay the debt? 0. Sylvia would rather burn the estate to the ground than give you a dime. He closed the folder. But here's what she doesn't know. Burning it to the ground is exactly what's going to happen. What do you mean? The estate doesn't have $3 million in liquid assets. To pay this debt, they'll have to sell everything. The house, the investments, the art collection, all of it. Everything? Everything. And once it's gone forever. I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of what Vance had done. He hadn't just protected me. He'd handed me a nuclear weapon. Miles, once we file this claim, there's no going back, is there? None. You'll destroy that family financially. They'll never forgive you and they'll never recover. And if I don't file it? Then you walk away with nothing, and they win. I thought about Sylvia's smile when she'd handed me the eviction notice. Oakley's laugh when she'd taken my jewelry. 10 years of being treated like a servant in my own home. File it, I said. Miles nodded. I'll have the papers ready by tomorrow morning. But Mrs. Horton, once Sylvia gets served, the gloves come off. Are you ready for that? I've been ready for 10 years. Good. Because they're going to come at you with everything they have. Let them come, he smiled. Now you sound like Vance's wife. The process server arrived at the estate at exactly 9 a.m. on Friday morning. I watched from the kitchen window as he rang the doorbell, holding the manila envelope that would change everything. Maria answered the door, took the papers, and disappeared inside. 30 seconds later, Sylvia's scream echoed through the house. What the hell is this? I poured myself coffee and waited. Solstice, get down here right now! I took my time walking to the living room, where I found Sylvia clutching the legal papers like they were on fire. Oakley stood beside her, reading over her shoulder with a face that had gone completely white. Explain this, Sylvia demanded, waving the documents. It's a creditor's claim. I thought the language was pretty clear. $2.3 million? Oakley's voice cracked. Are you insane? Actually, it's closer to $3 million with interest. But who's counting? Trent burst through the front door without knocking, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Sylvia, I got your call. What's this about a debt? He stopped when he saw me. Oh. Trent, thank God. Sylvia thrust the papers at him. Tell me this is some kind of joke. Trent put on his reading glasses and scanned the document. His face went through the same progression of emotions I'd seen on Miles's face, except in reverse: confidence to confusion to outright panic. "Where did you get this?" he asked me. "From my husband." "This is impossible. Vance never mentioned any debt agreement to me." "Maybe because you weren't his lawyer for this. You were the family lawyer. There's a difference." Sylvia snatched the papers back from Trent. "This is fraud, pure and simple. She forged this after he died. The document is dated 3 weeks before his death and witnessed by 2 medical professionals," I said calmly. "But feel free to make fraud accusations in court. I'm sure that'll go well for you." "You manipulated him." Oakley jumped up from the couch. "He was dying and you took advantage." "I took advantage?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "I spent 10 years being your family's unpaid servant, and you think I manipulated him?" "You were never our servant," Sylvia snapped. "You lived in luxury. I lived in a prison. You made sure I knew every single day that I didn't belong here, that I wasn't good enough, that I was just some gold digger who trapped your precious son. Because that's exactly what you were." The words hung in the air like a slap. Even Trent looked uncomfortable. "Well," I said quietly, "I guess we'll let the court decide what I was worth." Trent cleared his throat. "Let's all take a breath here, Mrs. Solstice. This document appears to be legitimate, but surely we can work out some kind of settlement." "No settlement," I said. "Full payment within 30 days as specified in the agreement." "That's impossible," Sylvia said. "The estate doesn't have that kind of liquid cash." "Then you'll have to liquidate assets." "Liquidate?" Oakley's voice was shrill. "You mean sell everything?" "I mean pay what's owed. This house has been in our family for 4 generations. And now it's collateral for a debt your brother incurred." Sylvia's composure finally cracked completely. "You vindictive little bitch! You think you can destroy our family?" "I think your son valued my contributions to this family more than you ever did." "Contributions?" Oakley laughed bitterly. "What contributions? You planned a few dinner parties. I planned every social event this family hosted for 10 years. I managed your mother's medical appointments when she had her hip surgery. I coordinated care for your grandfather before he died. I held Vance's hand through every panic attack about disappointing you people." My voice was getting louder. "I smiled and played the perfect daughter-in-law while you treated me like hired help." "Because that's what you were," Sylvia screamed. "Then pay me what hired help costs. $3 million is actually a bargain for a decade of professional services." Trent was frantically scribbling notes. "Perhaps we could dispute the valuation." "Go ahead. Take it to court. Let a jury decide what 10 years of emotional labor is worth." I smiled. "I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic to the wealthy family who treated their son's wife like garbage." "This is blackmail," Oakley said. "This is business. Your family taught me that everything has a price." Paige appeared in the doorway, drawn by the shouting. She took one look at the scene and her face fell. "What's happening?" "Your sister-in-law is trying to steal our inheritance," Oakley snapped. "I'm collecting a debt," I corrected. "There's a difference." Paige looked at the papers in Sylvia's hands. "What debt?" "Apparently, Vance owed her millions for being a wife," Sylvia said sarcastically. "For being your unpaid employee," I shot back. Trent stood up abruptly. "I need to review this more thoroughly. Sylvia, don't sign anything or agree to anything until I've had time to research our options." "What options?" I asked. "The debt is valid, it's documented, and it's witnessed. You can pay it, or you can lose everything in court." "We'll see about that," Sylvia said coldly. "Yes, we will." As Trent gathered his papers and headed for the door, he paused beside me. "You know this will get ugly. It's been ugly for 10 years. Now it's just expensive." After they left, Paige lingered in the doorway. "Is it real?" she asked quietly. "Very real." "How much?" "Enough to bankrupt them." She nodded slowly. "Good. Good. They destroyed you for 10 years. Maybe it's time someone destroyed them back. That afternoon, my phone started ringing. First Chaz, congratulating me, then my father, worried about retaliation, then numbers I didn't recognize, reporters who'd somehow gotten wind of the story. Horton family estate frozen by creditor claim, read the headline on the local business blog. By evening, Oakley was calling me directly. "You need to drop this," she said without preamble. "Or what?" "Or we'll make your life hell." I laughed. "Oakley, you've been making my life hell for a decade. What exactly are you going to do now? Be mean to me?" "We'll fight this in court. We'll drag your name through the mud. We'll prove you're nothing but a gold-digging whore who manipulated a dying man." "Go ahead. The more you attack me, the more sympathetic I look to a jury. This isn't over. You're right. It's just getting started." She hung up, and I sat in the gathering darkness of what used to be our bedroom, listening to the silence of a house where I was no longer welcome. But for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't afraid of that silence. I was the one holding the weapon now. The first anonymous letter arrived on Monday morning, slipped under my door while I slept. "You're going to regret this. We know where you came from." I was still staring at it when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this the woman trying to steal from the Horton family?" I hung up. It rang again immediately. "Listen, you gold-digging—" I turned off the phone. By Tuesday, the local newspaper had picked up the story. "Widow claims millions from prominent family estate." The article made me sound like a calculating opportunist who'd swooped in to prey on a grieving family. Sources close to the Hortons described the widow as manipulative and money-hungry, I read aloud to my father over lunch. One family friend said she always seemed more interested in their wealth than their son. "Anonymous sources," Dad said, cutting his sandwich. "Cowards who won't put their names to their lies." "It's working, though. Look at the comments." The online comments were brutal. Strangers calling me every name in the book, questioning my character, my motives, my right to breathe. Someone had even posted an old photo of me from high school, working at the diner where I'd saved money for college. "Look at this gold digger's humble beginnings," the caption read. "She saw her meal ticket and grabbed it." "Don't read that garbage," Dad said. "You know who you are." Do I? Because right now I feel like exactly what they're saying I am. You feel like a woman who got tired of being walked on. Nothing wrong with that. Wednesday brought a knock at the door. I opened it to find Paige standing on the porch, holding a manila envelope and looking like she hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," she said. I let her in and made coffee while she sat at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope like it might explode. "What's that?" I asked. "Insurance, in case things get worse." "Worse how?" "Mom's hired a private investigator. She's digging into your past, looking for anything she can use against you." Paige pushed the envelope across the table. "But I found something first." I opened it and pulled out bank statements, legal documents, and what looked like tax returns. "What am I looking at?" "Mom's been skimming from the estate for years. Fake consulting fees, inflated expenses, money transferred to offshore accounts." Paige's voice was barely a whisper. "She's been stealing from her own children's inheritance." The numbers swam on the page. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, moved around in complex transactions designed to hide their true purpose. "How did you get this?" "I've been the family bookkeeper for 5 years. Mom thought I was too stupid to notice the discrepancies." Paige's laugh was bitter. "Turns out being underestimated has its advantages." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because she's going to try to destroy you, and I can't watch it happen anymore." Paige met my eyes. "And because if this goes to court, you'll need ammunition. This could send her to prison." "I know. She's your mother." "She's a thief who's been stealing from her own family while calling you a gold digger." Paige stood up. "Keep those copies safe. You might need them." After she left, I called Miles. "Interesting," he said after I described the documents. "Very interesting. What does this mean for our case?" It means Sylvia's been living in a glass house while throwing stones. If she wants to question your motives, we can question hers. Will this help? It'll destroy her credibility completely. A jury won't trust a word she says once they see this. Thursday morning, I woke up to find my car tires slashed. I called the police, but there were no witnesses, no cameras, no evidence of who'd done it. The officer who took the report looked at me with barely concealed disgust. "You're the one suing the Hortons, right?" "I'm collecting a legitimate debt." "Uh-huh." He closed his notepad. "Might want to consider whether this is worth the trouble." "Are you suggesting I drop a legal claim because someone vandalized my property?" "I'm suggesting that sometimes it's better to know when you're beat." After he left, I sat on my front steps and called a cab to take me to the tire shop. While I waited, Chaz pulled up in his truck. "Heard about your car," he said, getting out. "You okay?" "Just peachy." "This is escalating fast. Tell me something I don't know." Chaz sat down beside me on the steps. "I've been asking around. The Hortons are telling everyone you seduced Vance specifically to get access to the family money." "Of course they are. They're saying you isolated him from his family, turned him against them. That's rich. They isolated themselves by treating him like a disappointment his entire life." "I know that. You know that. But people love a good villain story, and right now you're playing the villain. So what do you suggest? Roll over and let them win?" "Hell no. I suggest you stop playing defense and start playing offense." "Meaning?" "Meaning tell your side of the story. All of it. The dinner parties you organized, the family crises you managed, the way they treated you like hired help for 10 years. Chaz pulled out his phone. "I know a reporter who'd love to hear the real story." "I don't want to be in the news." "You're already in the news. Question is whether you want to control the narrative or let them control it." That evening, Sylvia called me directly. "I want to meet," she said without preamble. "Why?" "Because this has gone far enough. We need to settle this like adults." "Adults don't slash tires or hire private investigators." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't. One meeting, Solstice. Just you and me. No lawyers, no family, no drama." "Where?" "The country club. Tomorrow at noon." "Why there?" "Because it's neutral ground, and because I want to look you in the eye when I make you an offer." "What kind of offer?" "The kind that lets you walk away with your dignity intact." I almost laughed. "My dignity?" "Sylvia, you spent 10 years trying to strip me of every shred of dignity I had. And now you're trying to strip us of everything we have. I'd say we're even. We're not even close to even. Tomorrow at noon. Don't bring your lawyer." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there holding the phone, wondering if this was a trap or an opportunity. Either way, I was tired of hiding. It was time to face the woman who'd made my life hell for a decade. Time to look her in the eye and show her exactly what 10 years of her cruelty had created. A woman who was done being afraid. A woman who was ready for war. The country club dining room was nearly empty at noon on a Friday. Sylvia sat at a corner table, perfectly composed in her Chanel suit, sipping what looked like a martini. I walked over and sat down without being invited. "You're late," she said. "Traffic." "Of course." She gestured to the waiter. "Would you like something to drink?" "Just water." "How modest of you." The waiter brought my water and disappeared, leaving us alone in the echoing silence of the dining room. "Well," I said, "you wanted to meet." Sylvia reached into her purse and pulled out a check, sliding it across the white tablecloth. $500,000. Take it and disappear." I glanced at the check without touching it. "That's not even a quarter of what you owe me. It's more than you deserve. According to your son, I deserve $3 million. My son was dying and not thinking clearly. Your son was finally thinking clearly for the first time in his life." Sylvia's composure cracked slightly. "How dare you?" "How dare I what? Tell the truth? Your son spent his entire life trying to earn your approval, and you never gave it to him. Not once." I loved Vance. You loved controlling him. There's a difference. And you loved his money. I loved him. The money was just a bonus you made sure I never forgot about. Sylvia took a long sip of her martini. You really think you can destroy my family? I think your family destroyed itself. I'm just collecting payment for watching it happen. That check is my final offer. Then we'll see you in court. I started to stand, but Sylvia's voice stopped me. Sit down. We're not finished. Yes, we are. I know about the documents Paige gave you. I froze halfway out of my chair. What documents? The bank statements, the financial records. My daughter thinks she's very clever, but I've known about her little investigation for weeks. I sat back down. And? And nothing. Those documents prove nothing except that I've been managing family assets in complex ways. Perfectly legal complex ways. Embezzlement is legal now? Careful, dear. Accusations like that could be considered slander. Truth is a defense against slander. Sylvia smiled coldly. Is it? Because I have some interesting truths of my own. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through what looked like text messages. Did you know your friend Quinn has been very chatty lately? Apparently she's been struggling with some gambling debts. Makes people say all sorts of things for the right price. My blood turned to ice. What are you talking about? Quinn is prepared to testify that you coerced Vance into signing that debt agreement, that you threatened to leave him if he didn't give you financial security. That's a lie. Is it? Or is it just a different interpretation of the same events? Quinn would never. Quinn needs $50,000 to pay off some very unpleasant people. I'm prepared to help her with that problem in exchange for her testimony. I stared at her across the table, finally understanding the depth of her ruthlessness. You're going to commit perjury. I'm going to present an alternative narrative. Juries love stories about manipulative women who prey on sick men. The document is witnessed by Dr. Martinez, too. Dr. Martinez, who's been under investigation by the medical board for overprescribing pain medication? I'm sure his testimony will be very credible. The room felt like it was spinning. You've thought of everything. I've had to. You forced my hand. I forced your hand. You've been planning to destroy me since the day I married your son. I've been protecting my family since the day you seduced my son for his money. I was 24 years old and working 2 jobs to pay for nursing school. I didn't even know he had money when we met. Oh, please. Everyone knew who the Hortons were. I didn't. I grew up in a trailer park, Sylvia. I'd never heard of your precious family until Vance brought me to that first dinner where you looked at my shoes like I'd tracked dog shit into your house. Sylvia's mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw something that looked almost like shame. You never gave me a chance, I continued. Not one chance to prove I loved him for who he was, not what he had. Because I knew what you were. What was I, Sylvia? A woman who worked her ass off to better herself? A woman who loved your son enough to put up with 10 years of your abuse? You were a threat? To what? To everything. To our family, our reputation, our legacy. Your legacy? I laughed bitterly. Your legacy is a son who died feeling like he was never good enough, and a family that treats love like a business transaction. Sylvia's hand shook as she reached for her martini. Take the check, Solstice. Take it and walk away before this gets worse. Worse for who? For everyone. You think you're going to win this, but you're not. I'll destroy you in court. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of woman you really are. And what kind of woman is that? The kind who manipulates dying men for money. I stood up and picked up the check, looking at it one more time before tearing it in half. You know what, Sylvia? You're right. I am exactly that kind of woman now. You spent 10 years teaching me to be ruthless, and I learned the lesson perfectly. I dropped the pieces of the check on the table. See you in court. As I walked toward the exit, Sylvia called after me. You'll regret this. I turned back to face her one last time. The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner. Outside in the parking lot, I called Miles. They're going to fight dirty, I told him. How dirty? Bribery, perjury, character assassination, the full package. Good. Good? The dirtier they fight, the more desperate they look, and desperate people make mistakes. What if they succeed? What if they convince a jury I'm just a gold digger? Then we show them the evidence of Sylvia's embezzlement and ask the jury who the real thief is. Miles, I need you to understand something. I'm not backing down. No matter what they do, no matter what they say about me, I'm seeing this through to the end. Even if it destroys them completely? Especially if it destroys them completely. Then let's go to war. The courtroom was packed when the judge read his decision. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, this court finds the partnership debt agreement to be valid and enforceable. The estate is hereby ordered to pay the plaintiff the full amount of $3.2 million within 60 days. Sylvia's gasp echoed through the courtroom. Beside her, Oakley buried her face in her hands. Furthermore, the judge continued, this court is referring evidence of potential financial misconduct by the estate executor to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. That's when Sylvia finally broke. She stood up, pointing a shaking finger at me. You destroyed my family. Are you happy now? Order! The judge banged his gavel. Mrs. Horton, control yourself, or you'll be held in contempt. But Sylvia was beyond caring about contempt. 40 years I built this family's reputation. 40 years. You built it on lies, I said quietly, standing to face her. And you tore it down with greed. I protected what was ours. You stole from your own children while calling me a thief. The bailiff moved toward Sylvia, but she sat down abruptly, all the fight gone out of her. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Miles handled most of the questions, but one reporter pushed through to me directly. Mrs. Horton, how does it feel to have won? I looked back at the courthouse steps, where Sylvia sat alone while Trent frantically made phone calls. Oakley had already fled to her car. Only Paige remained, standing awkwardly between her family and the media circus. It doesn't feel like winning, I said honestly. What does it feel like? Like justice. Finally. The settlement came through 6 weeks later. The estate had to liquidate everything. The house, the art collection, the investment portfolio, even Sylvia's jewelry. Everything except the family cemetery plots. I was packing my things when Paige knocked on the bedroom door. The movers are here, she said. Thanks. She lingered in the doorway, watching me fold clothes into boxes. Where will you go? I bought a house across town. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. That's good. You deserve your own space. I looked up at her. What about you? What will you do now? I'm moving to Portland. Got a job with an accounting firm there. She smiled sadly. Turns out my bookkeeping skills are actually marketable. And your family? Mom's facing federal charges. The FBI seized her offshore accounts yesterday. Paige's voice was matter-of-fact. Oakley's moved in with her ex-husband's family. She's telling everyone this is temporary, but we both know better. I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't make Mom steal money, you just made her pay for it. Paige walked over to the window that overlooked the garden where Vance used to read on Sunday mornings. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think he knew what this would do to the family? I considered the question carefully. I think he knew exactly what it would do. And I think he was tired of watching his family treat people like garbage without consequences. He really loved you. I know. That's what makes this so hard. Hard how? Because I loved him too, and destroying his family feels like destroying part of him. Paige turned from the window. His family destroyed itself, Sol. You just held up a mirror. The movers finished loading my things around noon. As I walked through the empty house one last time, I found myself in Vance's study. His books were gone, sold with everything else. But I could still smell his cologne in the air. I hope you understand, I whispered to the empty room. I hope you know I didn't have a choice. My phone buzzed. Text from my father. House looks beautiful. Can't wait to have dinner in your new kitchen. I smiled and headed for the door. In the driveway, Chaz was waiting by his truck. Need a ride to your new place? I've got my car. I know, but I thought you might want company for the drive. Thanks. As we pulled away from the estate, I looked back one more time. The for sale sign was already up on the front lawn. By next month, some other family would be living there, making their own memories in rooms that had held so much pain. Any regrets? Chaz asked. I thought about Sylvia. Probably sitting in some lawyer's office right now, trying to figure out how to avoid prison. About Oakley, whose trust fund had evaporated along with her arrogance. About the Horton name, which would forever be associated with scandal and financial crime. No, I said finally. No regrets. Good. Because you did the right thing. Did I? Sometimes it feels like I just became as ruthless as they were. There's a difference between being ruthless and refusing to be a victim. Is there? Yeah, victims don't fight back. You fought back. We drove in comfortable silence until we reached my new house, a modest 2-story with a front porch and a garden that needed work. Nothing like the estate, but it was mine. Bought and paid for with money I'd earned the hard way. As I stood on the front steps, fishing for my keys, I thought about Vance's last words to me. Check the music box, Saul. Everything you need is in the music box. He'd been right. Everything I needed was there. Not just the legal document, but the proof that someone had finally valued what I brought to the table. Someone had finally seen me as more than just a pretty face or a convenient target. Someone had loved me enough to give me the tools to fight back. I unlocked the door and stepped into my new life, leaving the Hortons and their poison behind forever. The war was over. I had won. And for the first time in 10 years, that felt like enough.